Bear my child and I would give you $10 million.
The Mafia boss offered me $10 million to bear his child. I said yes. Then he said, stay. The eviction notice trembles in my hands as I stand in the hallway of the apartment building I've called home for 3 years. The paper is crisp, official, cruel in its bureaucratic language. Failure to pay rent. 30 days to vacate. The words blur as tears gather in my eyes, but I refuse to let them fall. Not here. Not where Mrs. Delancey from 4B can peek through her door and add this humiliation to her collection of neighborhood gossip. The fluorescent hallway light flickers above me, casting shadows that match the darkness creeping into my life. I fold the notice carefully, as if treating it with respect might somehow change its contents, and slip it into my bag. My hands are shaking. I'm 27 years old, a college graduate with 2 jobs, and I can't afford a $700 a month studio apartment in the worst part of Brooklyn. The American dream feels like a sick joke, and I'm the punchline everyone's been waiting for. My phone buzzes in my pocket. It's my boss at the diner, Gus, texting to remind me that I'm late for my shift. I'm not late. I'm exactly on time, but Gus has made a sport out of criticizing me ever since I rejected his advances 3 months ago. I type back a quick response and head down the stairs, taking them 2 at a time, despite the exhaustion that lives in my bones now. Between waitressing at Gus's diner during the day and cleaning offices downtown at night, I barely sleep. My reflection in the stairwell window catches my attention, and I almost don't recognize myself. Isla Barrett used to have light in her eyes. She used to believe that hard work mattered, that integrity counted for something. The woman staring back at me looks hollow, defeated, like she's already given up. I force myself to look away. If you're loving this story already, hit that subscribe button and drop an emoji in the comments. You won't believe where this goes. The memory hits me as I push through the building's front door into the cold March air. 6 months ago, I was engaged. 6 months ago, I had a savings account, a plan, a future. Then I came home early from my shift and found Trevor in our bed with my best friend Marissa. Not just in our bed, in my bed, the one I'd saved for months to buy when we moved in together. They didn't even stop when I walked in. Trevor just looked at me with this expression of mild annoyance, like I was interrupting something important, like my heartbreak was an inconvenience to his pleasure. Marissa had laughed. Actually laughed. "Don't be so dramatic, Isla," she'd said, pulling the sheet around herself. "You're too boring for him anyway. You work all the time. When was the last time you were even fun?" I'd stood there, frozen, unable to process what I was seeing. Unable to reconcile the people I loved most with the cruelty unfolding in front of me. I left that night with 1 suitcase and my dignity, though the dignity proved worthless when it came to paying bills. Trevor had been covering half the rent on our old place. Without him, I couldn't afford anything decent. I moved into the studio, picked up the second job, and tried to pretend I was fine. But fine is expensive. Fine requires health insurance I don't have, a car that doesn't break down every other week, and a buffer between paychecks. I don't have any of those things. What I have is $73 in my checking account, a maxed out credit card, and a mother in Ohio who's struggling with her own medical bills after her stroke last year. I send her what I can, which is never enough. Some nights, I lie awake calculating numbers that don't add up no matter how I arrange them, trying to figure out how to be everything for everyone when I can barely survive myself. The diner is busy when I arrive, and Gus shoots me a look that says he's going to make this shift hell. I tie my apron on and grab my order pad, slipping into the rhythm I know by heart. Smile at the customers, take their orders, pretend their complaints about cold coffee and slow service don't chip away at what's left of my self-worth. A businessman in a suit snaps his fingers at me from booth 7, and something inside me cracks a little more. I walk over with my smile plastered on. "What can I get you?" I ask, and he doesn't even look up from his phone as he rattles off his order. I'm invisible to him, a servant, a means to an end. When I bring his food 15 minutes later, he criticizes the temperature of his eggs and leaves me a 50-cent tip on a $40 bill. I pocket the change and swallow the humiliation. By the time my shift ends at 4, my feet are screaming and my back aches from carrying heavy trays. I have exactly 90 minutes before I need to be at the office building downtown for my cleaning shift. 90 minutes to eat something, change clothes, and pretend I'm capable of doing this all over again tomorrow. I'm walking to the subway when I see the accident. A black SUV and a delivery truck have collided at the intersection, and there's a man trapped in the SUV, blood streaming down his face. People are gathering, pulling out their phones to record instead of help. Something propels me forward. Maybe it's the nurse training I started before I had to drop out due to lack of funds. Maybe it's just human decency, and I'm at the car door, yanking it open, reaching for the man inside. "Don't move," I tell him, my hands checking for obvious injuries. The blood is from a cut on his forehead, dramatic but not immediately life-threatening. His eyes are unfocused, possibly a concussion. "Ambulance is coming, just stay still." He tries to talk, but I press my hand gently against his shoulder. "Don't, just breathe." His suit is expensive, tailored, the kind of clothing that costs more than I make in 6 months. His watch is probably worth more than my entire life. But right now, he's just a person who needs help, and I'm someone who can give it. I use my scarf to apply pressure to the wound on his head, talking to him softly, keeping him conscious and calm until the paramedics arrive. When they take over, I try to slip away into the crowd, but a hand catches my wrist. "Wait!" His voice is rough, commanding even in his injured state. His eyes focus on me for the first time, and I feel the intensity of his gaze, like a physical force. They are dark, impossibly dark, the kind of eyes that see everything and reveal nothing. "Your name?" It's not a question. "Isla," I say, trying to pull away. "It's fine. I'm just glad you're okay." But he doesn't release me. Instead, he reaches into his jacket with his free hand and pulls out a card. "Callahan Thorne," he says, pressing the card into my palm. "I don't forget debts. Call me." Then the paramedics are loading him onto a stretcher, and he's gone, and I'm standing there with a business card that probably means nothing, feeling like something significant just happened, but unable to name what it was. I'm 20 minutes late to my cleaning shift, and my supervisor, Rita, threatens to dock my pay. I apologize profusely, scrub toilets until my hands are raw, and try to forget about the man with the dark eyes and the commanding voice. But that night, lying in my apartment with the eviction notice on my kitchen counter, I pull out his card. Callahan Thorne, private equity. There's a phone number, nothing else. I should throw it away. Men like him don't actually remember people like me. The card is just a polite gesture, a meaningless token. But desperation makes people do irrational things. At 2 a.m, with my bank account in the negative and my mother's medical bills piling up, I send a text to the number on the card. "This is Isla, from the accident. I hope you're recovering well." I don't expect a response. The response comes 30 seconds later. "Meet me tomorrow." 10 a.m, address attached. The address is in Manhattan, Upper East Side, the kind of neighborhood where people like me only go to clean houses or serve food. I should say, no. Every instinct tells me this is a bad idea, but I'm being evicted in 30 days, and I'm out of options. So I type back, "I'll be there." And just like that, my life pivots towards something I can't yet see. Something that will either save me or destroy me completely. I don't sleep that night. I lie in the dark, wondering what kind of man Callahan Thorne is, what he could possibly want from me, and whether I'm brave enough or desperate enough to find out. The building is glass and steel, towering over Park Avenue, like a monument to wealth and power. I feel completely out of place as I walk through the revolving doors into a lobby that looks like it belongs in a museum. The security guard asks for my name, checks a list, and directs me to the penthouse elevator. My reflection in the mirrored wall shows a woman in her only professional outfit, a black dress I've worn to every job interview for the past 3 years, with her hair pulled back and her eyes shadowed by exhaustion. I look like what I am, someone barely holding on. The elevator rises smoothly, silently, and my stomach drops as the numbers climb. 42, 43, 44. When the doors open directly into an apartment, I have to remind myself to breathe. This isn't just an apartment. It's a palace in the sky. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook Central Park. The trees below looking like miniature models from this height. The furniture is modern and expensive, all clean lines and muted colors. Everything is impeccably arranged, as if a team of designers just finished working here minutes ago. I step out of the elevator, my worn shoes silent on the marble floor, and a voice calls out from somewhere to my left. In here. I follow the sound to a study lined with books and dominated by a massive desk. And there he is. Callahan Thorne. In the daylight, without blood obscuring his features, he's devastating. Tall, at least 6'3", with broad shoulders that fill out his suit perfectly. His dark hair styled back from his face, revealing sharp features, a strong jaw, high cheekbones, and those eyes. Those impossibly dark eyes that lock onto mine the moment I enter the room. Isla Barrett, he says, and the way he says my name makes it sound like he's already researched everything about me, which, I realize with a chill, he probably has. Please sit. He gestures to a chair across from his desk, and I sit, feeling like I'm about to be interrogated or judged or both. He doesn't sit. Instead, he moves to a bar cart and pours 2 glasses of water, bringing one to me before settling into his own chair. The gesture is unexpectedly thoughtful. Thank you for coming, he says, studying me with an intensity that makes me want to squirm. How are you? I ask because it seems polite, because I don't know what else to say. The cut? Is it healing? He touches his forehead where a bandage covers the stitches. Fine. Thanks to you. A pause. I've had you investigated. My blood runs cold. What? He leans back in his chair, completely relaxed, as if admitting to invading someone's privacy is perfectly normal. I needed to know who you were. What kind of person runs toward danger instead of away from it? His gaze doesn't waver. You're 27. College degree in nursing, never completed due to financial constraints. Currently working 2 jobs, both underpaid. Eviction notice served 3 days ago. Mother in Ohio with significant medical debt. Ex-fiancé who cheated on you with your best friend 6 months ago. Each fact he recites feels like a slap. My humiliation is complete. This stranger knows my failures, my pain, my desperation. I should stand up and leave. Instead, I grip the glass of water in my hands and ask, why? Why would you investigate me? He leans forward, and the air between us shifts, becomes charged with something I can't name. Because I have a proposition for you, Callahan says, and the way he says, proposition makes my pulse quicken. One that requires trust, discretion, and someone with absolutely nothing to lose. He pauses, letting that sink in. I'm prepared to offer you $10 million for a year of your life. The number doesn't make sense. I must have misheard. 10 million? He nods once, sharp and certain. $10 million. In exchange, you will carry and deliver my child. The room tilts. I grip the edge of the desk, sure I'm about to pass out. You want me to be a surrogate, he clarifies, his voice steady, businesslike, with one significant difference. The child will be biologically yours and mine. Natural conception. You'll live here, under my protection for the duration of the pregnancy and for 3 months after the birth. Then you'll be free to go, $10 million richer. I can't breathe. Can't think. This is insane. Why? I managed to ask. Why me? His expression doesn't change. Because you're exactly what I need. No family complications, no relationships, No one who would fight for custody or make demands. You're desperate enough to say yes, but decent enough to be trusted with my child. The honesty is brutal. He's not pretending this is anything other than a transaction. And because, he adds, his voice dropping lower, I watched you risk yourself for a stranger without hesitation. That kind of courage, that kind of inherent goodness, those are traits I want in my child's mother. Mother. The word echoes in my head. I would be a mother. You'd keep the baby? I ask. He nods. I want an heir, someone to leave my legacy to. I have no interest in marriage, no time for relationships. This is efficient. Efficient. As if creating a human life is a business merger. And yet, $10 million, I could pay off my debts, save my mother, start over, actually live instead of just surviving. What if I say no? I ask. Callahan stands, walks to the window, his back to me. Then you leave, and we never speak again. But Isla... He turns, and the intensity in his gaze pins me to my chair. You won't get another opportunity like this. I've chosen you specifically. This offer expires the moment you walk out that door. He's right. I know he's right. This is insane, impossible, the kind of thing that doesn't happen in real life. But my life isn't working. My choices led me here, to this moment, broke and desperate. Maybe it's time to make a different kind of choice. I need time to think, I say. He shakes his head. No, now. Decide now. The pressure is enormous. My heart pounds so hard I can feel it in my throat. Everything in me screams that this is wrong, dangerous, completely reckless. But I think about my mother, struggling to pay for her medications. I think about Trevor and Marissa, about how they took everything from me and felt no remorse. I think about Gus and the businessman who snapped his fingers at me and all the people who treat me like I'm less than human because I'm poor. And I think about $10 million. Freedom, choice, the ability to help people instead of being helpless. I meet Callahan Thorne's dark eyes and hear myself say the words that will change everything. Yes, I'll do it. His expression doesn't change, but something flickers in his eyes. Satisfaction, maybe, or something darker. Good, he says, and pulls out a contract that's already prepared, as if he knew exactly what I would say. The contract is 40 pages long, written in dense legal language that makes my head spin. Callahan gives me 2 hours to read it, sitting in his study while I go through every clause, every stipulation. A lawyer is on standby via video call to answer my questions. The terms are clear. I'll live in this penthouse for the duration of the pregnancy. All medical care provided, all expenses covered. No contact with former associates without approval. Non-disclosure agreement preventing me from ever speaking publicly about this arrangement. And at the end, $10 million transferred to an account in my name. The lawyer asked me 3 times if I understand what I'm signing. I do. I'm signing away a year of my life. I'm agreeing to have a child and give it up. I'm entering into a contract with a man I don't know, who may be dangerous, who definitely has secrets. But I sign. My hand is steady as I write my name, Isla Barrett, at the bottom of the final page. Callahan signs next to me, his signature a bold slash of ink. He takes the contract, files it away in a safe behind a painting, and turns to me. You'll move in today, he says. I'll have your belongings collected from your apartment. Today? I echo, the reality hitting me. He nods. No reason to delay. The sooner we begin, the sooner you'll have your money. He says it so matter-of-factly, as if we're discussing a grocery list rather than the creation of a human life. Do you have questions? I have 1,000 questions, but only one seems important right now. Why do you want a child if you don't want a family? For the first time, his carefully controlled expression cracks. Something painful flashes across his face. Because I'm building something that matters, and I need someone to leave it to. Someone who carries my blood. He moves to the window again. My father built an empire. I've expanded it, but empires need heirs. There's more to it than that. I can sense the weight of unspoken history, trauma buried under ambition. But I don't push. I'm not here to psychoanalyze him. I'm here for $10 million. When do we begin? I ask, and hate how uncertain my voice sounds. He turns, and his gaze is heated now, traveling over me in a way that makes my skin flush. Tonight, he says simply. We'll have dinner, get acquainted, and then we'll begin the process. The clinical language doesn't match the way he's looking at me. I should be afraid. Maybe I am. But there's something else there, too, something that makes my pulse race for reasons that have nothing to do with fear. Okay, I whisper, and wonder what I've just agreed to. What kind of man Callahan Thorne really is beneath the suits and the contracts and the cold business transactions. A woman appears, his housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, and shows me to my room. It's bigger than my entire apartment, with a king-sized bed, a sitting area, and an ensuite bathroom that looks like a spa. My clothes from the studio arrive within 3 hours, looking shabby and out of place in the elegant closet. Mrs. Chen assures me that new wardrobes will be provided. Everything will be provided. I'm to want for nothing, except freedom, except the right to leave, except any say in what happens to the child I'll carry. I sit on the edge of the enormous bed and try to process what I've done. This morning, I was barely surviving. Tonight, I'm living in a penthouse, preparing to have a baby with a stranger for money. It feels surreal, wrong, but also, and I hate myself for thinking it, like an escape. Dinner is served at 8 in a formal dining room that could seat 20 but holds only the two of us. Callahan has changed into dark slacks and a black shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle. He's impossibly handsome, I realize, in a way that feels almost weaponized. This is a man who uses his appearance, his power, his money as tools, and I've just agreed to let him use me. The thought should horrify me. Instead, I find myself watching him pour wine, just one glass for himself, since I'll need to abstain soon, and wondering what his story is. Who hurt him? What made him this way? Tell me about yourself, he says, cutting into a steak with precise movements. I laugh bitterly. You already had me investigated. You know everything. I know facts, he corrects. I don't know you. So I talk. I tell him about growing up in Ohio, about my mother who worked 3 jobs to raise me alone after my father left, about my dreams of being a nurse, of helping people, and how those dreams died when the money ran out, about Trevor and Marissa and the devastation of betrayal, about the slow suffocation of poverty, the way it steals not just your resources, but your hope. He listens without interruption, his dark eyes fixed on me with an intensity that's both unnerving and intoxicating. When I finish, he's quiet for a long moment. Then he says, "You deserve better than you've been given." The statement is simple, but something in his tone makes my throat tighten. And you? I ask. What's your story? His jaw tightens. Not tonight, he says, and the walls come back up. We finish dinner in loaded silence. At 10, he comes to my room. I'm wearing a nightgown Mrs. Chen left for me, silk and expensive, nothing like the worn t-shirts I usually sleep in. When he knocks and enters, I'm sitting on the bed, heart pounding, terrified and expectant in equal measure. This is it. This is what I agreed to. He approaches slowly, like I'm a wild animal that might bolt. Isla, he says, and my name on his lips does something to me. We don't have to do anything you're not ready for. I signed a contract, I remind him, trying to sound braver than I feel. He sits beside me, close enough that I can smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. The contract says you'll carry my child. It doesn't specify how or when we create that child. If you need time, I don't, I interrupt. I need to do this before I lose my nerve. His hand comes up to cut my face, his thumb brushing across my cheekbone. The touch is gentle, almost reverent. You're trembling. he observes. I am. I'm shaking like a leaf, terrified of this stranger, of what we're about to do. But I'm also captivated by him, by the darkness in his eyes and the careful control he maintains. I start, then stop, unsure how to explain. I've only been with one person, Trevor, and it was never... I trail off, embarrassed. Understanding dawns in his expression. Never good, he finishes for me. I nod, feeling my cheeks burn. He leans closer, his breath warm against my ear. Then let me show you what it should be, he murmurs, and his lips brush against my neck, sending electricity racing through my veins. This is wrong. This is a transaction. But when his mouth finds mine, I stop thinking altogether. I wake up alone. The morning sun streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting everything in gold, and for a moment I forget where I am. Then I remember. The contract. The agreement. The night. Oh God, the night. My face flushes as memories flood back, Callahan's hands on my skin, his mouth doing things I'd only read about. Pleasure so intense I'd actually cried. He'd been patient, thorough, devastating in his attention to my body. Nothing like Trevor's selfish fumbling. When it was over, he'd held me until I fell asleep, his heartbeat steady against my back. But now he's gone, and I'm left wondering if it meant anything to him or if I'm just a means to an end. A womb for hire. I shower in the massive bathroom, trying to wash away the confusion and the unexpected ache in my chest. Mrs. Chen brings breakfast to my room. Fresh fruit, yogurt, whole grain toast, orange juice. Mr. Thorne requests you join him in his study at 11, she says with a kind smile. She's older, probably in her 60s, with gentle eyes that seem to see too much. How are you settling in, dear? The question is loaded. Does she know why I'm here? What I've agreed to? I manage a weak smile. Fine, thank you. She pats my hand. He's a good man, underneath all that armor. Lonely, though, has been for a long time. Then she's gone, leaving me with more questions than answers. What did she mean? Who is Callahan Thorne, really? I eat mechanically, shower, and dress in one of my own outfits since the promised wardrobe hasn't arrived yet. At 11 exactly, I knock on his study door. Come in. He's at his desk, working on a laptop, looking every bit the powerful businessman in a dark suit. He glances up when I enter, and something flickers in his eyes before the mask returns. Sit. I sit. He closes the laptop and gives me his full attention. How are you feeling? The question seems genuine, but I don't know how to answer. Confused? Used? Surprisingly satisfied? Fine, I say carefully. He studies me for a long moment, then nods. Good. We'll schedule a doctor's appointment for next week. Until then, you're free to do as you please within the penthouse. If you need anything, tell Mrs. Chen. He's back to business mode, cool and distant. Last night might as well have been a dream. Is that all? I ask, trying to keep the hurt from my voice. No. He stands, moves around the desk, leans against it in front of me. There are things you need to understand, Isla. Things about who I am and what I do. A pause. I'm not just in private equity. My family, my business, has connections to organizations most people only see in movies. My stomach drops. I can't say it. He says it for me. My family has ties to organized crime. The Thorne Syndicate controls significant territory in New York and beyond. I've worked for years to legitimize our operations, to build legal businesses that eclipse the illegal ones. But the past doesn't disappear just because you want it to. He watches my face carefully. Are you afraid? I should be. I should run. But I think about the eviction notice, my mother's medical bills, the $10 million. Should I be? I whisper. No, he says firmly. You're under my protection. No one will touch you. No one will even know you exist unless I allow it. He reaches out, tucks a strand of hair behind my ear. But there are dangers in my world, Isla. Enemies. People who would use you to get to me if they knew about you. His jaw tightens. That's why you can't leave. Why you can't contact anyone from your old life. It's not about control. It's about keeping you safe. The tenderness in his voice contradicts his words. If this isn't about control, why does it feel like I'm a prisoner in a golden cage? But I nod, because what choice do I have? I understand, I say, though I don't. Not really, not yet. He seems satisfied. Good. Now, Mrs. Chen will take you shopping. You need proper clothes. Don't argue about cost. You're representing me now. Are you still with me? Drop an emoji in the comments if you're hooked on this story. The next part is going to blow your mind. The shopping trip is surreal. Mrs. Chen takes me to boutiques I've only seen in magazines, where sales associates bring champagne and treats while I try on clothes that cost more than my monthly rent used to. I protest at first, uncomfortable with the extravagance, but Mrs. Chen is firm. Mr. Thorne's orders, she says, smiling. And besides, you deserve beautiful things, dear. By the end of the day, I have a wardrobe that makes me look like someone else entirely. Elegant dresses, designer jeans, silk blouses, shoes that fit perfectly. When I look in the mirror, I barely recognize myself. This Isla could belong in Callahan's world. My old Isla was drowning. Maybe this is better. Maybe I can become someone new. That night, Callahan doesn't come to my room, and I lie awake wondering why I'm disappointed. Days blur into weeks. I settle into a strange routine. Breakfast alone, afternoons reading or watching the city from the windows, evenings with Callahan when he's not working late. We eat dinner together, conversation flowing easier than it should between two strangers. He asks about my childhood, my dreams, what I want to do with my money when this is over. I ask carefully chosen questions about his business, never pushing too hard, and he answers with selective truth. We dance around each other, revealing pieces but never the whole picture. On the nights he comes to my room, it's different than that first time. Slower, more intimate. He learns my body like he's studying for an exam, memorizing what makes me gasp, what makes me beg. And afterward, he holds me, his defenses dropping just enough that I glimpse the man beneath the armor. 3 weeks in, the doctor confirms it. I'm pregnant. The news hits me like a physical blow. It's real now. There's a life growing inside me, a child that will be Callahan's, not mine. I should feel nothing. This was the plan, the agreement. But sitting in the doctor's office with Callahan's hand squeezing mine, I feel everything. Terror, wonder, loss. When we get back to the penthouse, I go straight to my room and cry. Not sad tears exactly, just overwhelmed. An hour later, Callahan knocks softly and enters. He doesn't say anything, just sits beside me on the bed and pulls me into his arms. It's okay to feel whatever you're feeling, he murmurs into my hair. This is real. It's allowed to be complicated. I sob against his chest, soaking his shirt with my tears, and he just holds me, steady and solid, until I have nothing left. That night, something shifts between us. He doesn't leave after holding me. Instead, he stays, talking quietly about his own fears, that he won't be a good father, that his world is too dark for a child, that he's making a mistake. It's the most vulnerable I've ever seen him, and I realize with a start that Callahan Thorne is just as scared as I am. You'll be a good father, I tell him, meaning it. You're protective, strong. You care more than you let on. He looks at me with those dark eyes, and I see something there that makes my breath catch. Something that looks dangerously like affection. And you'll be a good mother, he says softly, to whatever children you have someday when this is over. The reminder stings. When this is over, when I leave, when I'm nothing to him but a memory and a contract fulfilled. The pregnancy progresses. Morning sickness hits hard in the second month, and Callahan hovers like I'm made of glass. He cancels meetings to sit with me while I'm sick, holds my hair back, brings me crackers and ginger tea. Mrs. Chen jokes that she's never seen him so attentive, and I catch her watching us with knowing eyes. "He cares for you," she says one afternoon while Callahan is at a meeting. We're in the kitchen, and she's teaching me to make her famous dumplings. "More than he probably should." I shake my head. "It's just the baby. He wants to protect his investment." Mrs. Chen laughs. "Oh, honey, I've worked for the Thorne family for 30 years. I've seen Callahan through his darkest days. The way he looks at you, that's not about a baby, that's about you." I want to believe her, but I can't let myself. This is temporary, a business arrangement. Letting my heart get involved would be disaster, but it's already too late. Somewhere between the shared dinners and the late night conversations and the way he touches me like I'm precious, I've fallen for Callahan Thorne. Completely, hopelessly. And I have no idea if he feels anything for me beyond contractual obligation and physical attraction. The thought keeps me up at night, lying in bed after he's left, wondering if I'm just another transaction in his carefully controlled world. Wondering if, when this is over, he'll forget me as easily as he signed that contract. The uncertainty is agony, but I'm in too deep to protect myself now. All I can do is survive the next months and hope my heart stays intact. Then Vanessa arrives, and everything unravels. She appears at the penthouse one evening in early June, all long legs and designer clothes and entitled arrogance. I'm curled up on the couch reading when the elevator opens and she strides in like she owns the place. "Callahan!" she calls out, her voice sharp and familiar. He emerges from his study and the expression on his face, surprise, irritation, something else, makes my stomach sink. "Vanessa, what are you doing here?" She laughs, a brittle sound. "Is that any way to greet your fiancé?" The world stops. "Fiancé?" I must have made a sound because they both turn to look at me. Vanessa's eyes narrow, assessing me with the precision of a predator sizing up prey. "And who is this?" she asks, her tone dripping with disdain. Callahan's jaw tightens. "This is Isla. She's—" "Oh, I know exactly what she is," Vanessa cuts in, moving closer to me. "The help." Callahan always did have a soft spot for charity cases. She turns back to him. "Really, darling? The cleaning girl? That's beneath even you." My face burns with humiliation. I stand, trying to maintain dignity, but Vanessa's not done. "I suppose you didn't tell her about us? About our engagement? About the wedding planned for September?" She holds up her left hand, where a massive diamond glitters. I look at Callahan, waiting for him to deny it, to explain. But he doesn't. His face is a mask, revealing nothing. "Vanessa, leave," he says quietly. "Now." She smirks. "I'll leave. But only because I have better things to do than watch you play house with the hired help. See you at dinner tomorrow, darling. Your mother invited me." She's gone as quickly as she arrived, leaving devastation in her wake. I stare at Callahan, waiting for an explanation, but he just rakes his hand through his hair. "It's not what you think," he finally says. "Not what I think?" My voice is shaking. "She had a ring. She called herself your fiancé. What exactly am I supposed to think?" He steps toward me, but I back away. "The engagement is arranged by our families, a business merger. I never wanted it. But you agreed to it." The words are bitter. "You're planning to marry her." "It's complicated," he says, frustration bleeding through his control. "There are alliances at stake, territories." "So what am I?" I interrupt, tears streaming down my face now. "What is this?" I gesture to my stomach, where his child is growing. "Just another business transaction? A backup plan?" "No," he says firmly, reaching for me. "Isla, no, you're—" But I don't let him finish. I run to my room and lock the door, collapsing on the bed in sobs. I'm such a fool. I let myself believe this meant something, that I meant something to him. But I'm just the woman he hired to carry his baby, while he marries someone appropriate, someone from his world, someone who's not broken and desperate and poor. The humiliation is worse than anything Trevor did to me. Because this time, I knew better. This time, I walked into the cage willingly. I cry until I'm empty, until there's nothing left but a hollow ache in my chest. Callahan knocks on the door repeatedly, calling my name, but I don't answer. Eventually, he stops, and the silence is somehow worse. I don't come out for 2 days. Mrs. Chen brings food, but I barely eat. I lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out my next move. The contract is clear. I can't leave. I'm trapped here until the baby is born. Trapped in this penthouse with a man who's engaged to someone else, carrying a child that will never be mine. On the 3rd day, Callahan stops asking for permission. He uses a key to unlock the door and enters, despite my protests. He looks terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, his shirt wrinkled. "We need to talk," he says. "I don't want to hear it," I reply, turning away from him. He sits on the bed anyway. "I should have told you about Vanessa from the beginning. That was wrong. But Isla, you have to understand. That engagement means nothing to me. It's a political arrangement. I don't love her. I don't even like her." "But you're still going to marry her." My voice is flat, dead. He's silent for a long moment. "I don't know," he admits finally. "Breaking the engagement would cause problems. Dangerous problems. My family, her family, there are expectations, obligations. And I'm just the woman carrying your child," I say bitterly. "A secret. Something to hide." "You're not." He grabs my shoulders, forces me to look at him. "You're not just anything to me, Isla. These past months, you've become..." He stops, struggling with words he's not used to saying. "I care about you. More than I should. More than is smart or safe. But I don't know how to navigate this without destroying everything. I want to believe him. God, I want to believe him. But I've been lied to before. Hurt before. If you care about me, choose me," I whisper. "Break the engagement. Figure out a different way." His face crumbles, and I see the war happening inside him. Duty versus desire. Family versus feeling. "I can't," he says finally, the words destroying us both. "Not yet. There are things happening, moves being made. If I break with Vanessa's family now, there will be war. People will die. I need time." "Time," I echo hollowly. "How much time?" "I don't know." He looks tormented. "But please, Isla, please don't give up on me, on us. Whatever this is between us, it's real. I know you feel it too." I do feel it. That's the problem. I've fallen for a man who can't choose me, who's bound by obligations I don't understand. "I need space," I tell him, pulling away. "Please just leave me alone for a while." He starts to argue, then nods slowly. "Okay, but Isla, this isn't over. I won't let you go. Not if I have any choice in the matter." Then he's gone, and I'm alone again, wondering if his promises mean anything or if I'm just deluding myself. I'm getting emotional over here. If this story's hitting you in the feels, let me know in the comments. And keep watching. The biggest twist is still coming. Weeks pass in painful limbo. Callahan respects my request for space, but I see the toll it takes on him. He looks increasingly haggard, stressed, like he's fighting battles on multiple fronts. Mrs. Chen tells me his business is in crisis. Rivals making moves, questioning his leadership. And through it all, Vanessa keeps appearing, acting like the lady of the house, shooting me venomous looks whenever we cross paths. I'm 5 months pregnant now, my belly showing. And her hatred of me is palpable. One afternoon, she corners me in the hallway. "You actually think he cares about you?" she hisses, her beautiful face twisted with malice. "You're just a womb, a transaction. When that baby is born, you'll be gone, and I'll be raising it as my own." The words are knives, each one precise and devastating. Callahan is mine. He always has been. This little arrangement, she gestures dismissively at my stomach, changes nothing. I want to argue, to defend myself, but the horrible truth is she might be right. I don't know what I am to Callahan anymore. We exist in the same space but live separate lives. He works late, avoids me, only checking in through Mrs. Chen to make sure I'm healthy. The distance is a physical ache, like losing a limb. I miss him. The man who held me while I cried, who talked about his fears, who touched me like I mattered. But that man seems to have disappeared, replaced by the cold businessman who sees me as a problem to manage. I spend my days reading, taking walks around the penthouse's private terrace, and trying not to think about how badly I've screwed up my life. The money seems meaningless now. What good is $10 million if I've sold my soul and broken my heart in the process? Then one night, everything explodes. I'm woken at 2 a.m. by shouting, Callahan's voice, angry and commanding, and other voices I don't recognize. I wrap my robe around my pregnant belly and creep to the door, opening it a crack. The living room is full of men in suits, all armed, all radiating menace, and in the center of them is Callahan, facing off against a man I've never seen before. "You've gotten soft, Thorne," the stranger says. He's older, maybe 50s, with cold eyes and a cruel mouth. Distracted. Word is you're playing house with some pregnant girl, making stupid decisions. My blood runs cold. They're talking about me. "My personal life is not your concern, Victor," Callahan replies, his voice deadly calm. "Stay in your territory, and I'll stay in mine." Victor laughs. "Your territory? You're losing your edge. The families are talking. Some think it's time for new leadership." He pulls out a gun, and my heart stops. Some think you need to be reminded who really holds power in this city. I should stay hidden, should stay safe, but I can't watch Callahan die. Without thinking, I throw open the door and step into the room. "Stop!" Everyone turns to stare at me, a pregnant woman in a bathrobe, completely out of place in this world of violence and power. Callahan's face goes white. "Isla, get back inside." But Victor's attention is now on me, his eyes lighting up with malicious interest. "So this is the girl. I heard rumors, but I didn't believe you actually knocked up some random surrogate? How sentimental." He approaches me, and Callahan moves to intercept, but Victor's men raise their weapons. Stay there." Victor circles me like I'm a curiosity in a museum. "Pretty thing, young, definitely beneath your usual standards." He reaches out to touch my face, and I flinch away. "Feisty, too. I can see why you kept her around." His hand drops to my stomach, and rage flashes across Callahan's face. "Touch her again, and you're dead," Callahan says, his voice so cold it could freeze fire. Victor smirks. "You're not in a position to make threats. See, I think this girl and that baby are going to be very useful in keeping you in line. Insurance, if you will." He nods to his men. "Take her." Chaos erupts. Callahan moves like lightning, disarming the closest man and using him as a shield. Gunshots explode, deafening in the enclosed space. I scream and drop to the floor, arms wrapped protectively around my belly. Glass shatters. Someone falls. Victor is shouting orders. And through it all, Callahan fights like a demon, taking down Victor's men with brutal efficiency. When the smoke clears, Victor is on the ground, Callahan's gun pressed to his temple. "You came into my home," Callahan says, each word deliberate and deadly. "You threatened what's mine. Give me one reason I shouldn't kill you right now." Victor tries to laugh, but it comes out choked. "Because you're smarter than that. Because killing me starts a war you can't win." Callahan's finger tightens on the trigger, and for a moment I think he's actually going to do it. But then he looks at me, still curled on the floor, trembling, holding his child, and something shifts in his expression. "Get out," he says to Victor. "Take your men and get out. If you ever come near her again, war or no war, I will end you." Slowly. Victor scrambles up and his remaining men drag out the bodies. When the elevator doors close behind them, the penthouse falls silent. Callahan drops the gun and comes to me, pulling me into his arms. "Are you hurt? Is the baby—" "We're fine," I manage, though I'm shaking so hard my teeth are chattering. "I'm fine." He holds me tighter, his face buried in my hair, and I feel him trembling too. You could have been killed, he says raggedly. You should have stayed in your room. Why did you? Because I couldn't let him shoot you, I whisper. I couldn't just watch. He pulls back, cups my face in his hands. His eyes are wild, filled with something raw and desperate. I can't lose you, he says. I can't. Isla, He stops, searching for words. I've been a coward, trying to balance everything, keep everyone safe, maintain alliances, but tonight, when I thought he might take you, I realized none of it matters. Nothing matters except you and that baby. What are you saying? My voice is barely audible. I'm saying I'm done with Vanessa, done with arranged marriages and political alliances, done pretending this is just business. His thumbs brush away my tears. I'm saying I've fallen in love with you, Isla Barrett, completely, irrevocably, and I don't care what it costs me. My heart stops, then starts again, racing. You love me? I love you, he confirms, and the words are a vow. I should have told you weeks ago. Should have broken things off with Vanessa the moment I realized. But I was afraid of what it would mean, what I'd have to sacrifice. Tonight taught me that I was sacrificing the wrong things. He kisses me, desperate and claiming. Stay with me? Not because of a contract, because you want to, because you feel this too. I do feel it. God help me, I feel it. I love you too, I whisper against his lips. I tried not to, but nothing stops it, he finishes. I know. The fallout from Victor's attack is swift and brutal. Callahan calls a meeting of the families, breaking off his engagement to Vanessa in front of everyone and declaring me under his protection. Vanessa screams, throws things, threatens war. Her father promises retribution. But Callahan stands firm, his hand in mine, facing down his entire world for me. This woman is carrying my child, he tells them, his voice ringing with authority. She will be my wife. Anyone who threatens her threatens me, and you all know what happens to people who threaten me. The room goes silent. Some of the families nod grudging respect. Others look furious, but no one moves against us. Not then. The real danger comes later, in ways we don't expect. Vanessa, it turns out, is not one to accept defeat gracefully. 2 weeks after the public humiliation of our engagement breaking, evidence surfaces of a plot to kidnap me. Security intercepts messages between Vanessa and a hired criminal crew, detailing plans to take me, extract the baby, and eliminate me. Reading the transcripts makes my blood run cold. She was going to cut me open, take Callahan's child, and make my death look like a tragic accident. When Callahan shows me the evidence, his face is white with rage. She's finished, he says flatly. I'm taking everything from her. Her family's territory, their businesses, their protection. They'll be lucky if I let them leave New York alive. I should probably feel guilty, but I don't. Vanessa tried to kill me, to kill my baby. She deserves whatever judgment Callahan delivers. Within a week, the Romero family, Vanessa's family, is destroyed. Their assets seized, their soldiers absorbed into other families, their influence erased. Vanessa herself disappears, and I don't ask where she went. Some things are better left unknown. Wait until you see what happens next. If you're still watching, drop a comment. I need to know I'm not alone in being obsessed with this story. With the threats eliminated and the families brought back under control, life in the penthouse settles into something almost normal. Callahan is different now, softer, more open, letting his guard down in ways I never thought possible. He talks about his childhood, about his father's abuse, and his mother's silent complicity, about the violence that shaped him. He tells me about the empire he's building, about his plans to legitimize everything, to create something his child can be proud of. And he listens to me, really listens when I talk about my dreams, about the nursing career I gave up, about wanting to make a difference. We can make that happen, he says one night, lying in bed with his hand on my stomach, feeling the baby kick. After the baby comes, we'll set up a foundation, medical care for people who can't afford it. You can be as involved as you want." "I thought I was supposed to leave," I remind him gently. "Take my money and disappear." He rolls over, pinning me with his intense gaze. "I'm tearing up that contract. You're not leaving, Isla. You're staying. Forever, if I have my way." He reaches into the nightstand and pulls out a small box. My heart stops. I know this isn't romantic. I know I've done everything backward, but he opens the box, revealing a diamond that takes my breath away. "Marry me. Be my wife. Help me build something good out of this dark world. Let me spend the rest of my life making up for every moment I made you feel like you weren't enough." Tears stream down my face. "Yes," I whisper. "Yes, yes, yes." He slides the ring onto my finger, and it fits perfectly, like it was always meant to be there. We marry in a small ceremony in the penthouse. Just us and Mrs. Chen and a justice of the peace. I'm 7 months pregnant, glowing despite my enormous belly, wearing a simple silk dress that Callahan commissioned specifically for this day. When he sees me, his eyes fill with tears. "You're beautiful," he says, his voice rough with emotion. We say our vows, promises to protect, to cherish, to build a life together despite all the odds against us. When the justice pronounces us married, Callahan kisses me like I'm the most precious thing in his world, because I am. I finally understand that I am. Mrs. Chen cries happy tears and hugs us both. "I knew it," she says, laughing through her tears. "From the moment you walked in here, I knew you were the one who'd break through his walls." She touches my belly gently. "This baby is so lucky, so loved already." The baby comes 3 weeks early on a cold December morning. Labor is long and difficult, 36 hours of pain and fear, and Callahan never leaving my side. He holds my hand, wipes my face, talks me through every contraction. When the doctor finally says I can push, I'm exhausted, ready to give up. But Callahan leans close and whispers, "You can do this, Isla. You're the strongest person I know. Just a little more. Just bring our son into the world. Son. We're having a son." That knowledge gives me strength I didn't know I had. I push with everything in me, screaming and crying and refusing to quit. And then, a baby's cry. The most beautiful sound in the universe. "It's a boy," the doctor announces, placing a wriggling, crying, perfect infant on my chest. I look down at him, dark hair, Callahan's eyes, tiny fists waving, and fall completely in love. Callahan is crying openly, touching his son's head with shaking hands. "He's perfect," he whispers. "Isla, he's perfect." We name him James, after my father who left when I was young, but whose memory I've always treasured. James Callahan Thorne, our son, our miracle, the baby who brought me into Callahan's world and changed everything. As I hold James, with Callahan's arm around both of us, I think about how far I've come. A year ago, I was being evicted, broken, betrayed by everyone I loved. I thought my life was over, but it wasn't over. It was just beginning. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best things. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what really matters. I found it in the most unexpected place with the most unlikely person, a Mafia boss who offered me money and gave me love instead. Did this story touch your heart? If you loved Isla and Callahan's journey, let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, hit that subscribe button. More emotional Mafia romance coming soon. 3 months later, I'm sitting in the nursery we created together, feeding James and watching the sunrise over Central Park. The penthouse that once felt like a cage now feels like home. Callahan appears in the doorway, already dressed for work, but he doesn't leave. Instead, he crosses to us, kissing my forehead and then James's. "Beautiful morning," he observes. "Beautiful life," I correct him. smiling up at the man I love, the man who saw me at my lowest and lifted me higher than I ever dreamed possible. He sits beside me, wrapping his arm around us. "Any regrets?" he asks. I think about the question seriously, about the contract, the arrangement, the money that's still sitting in an account I've barely touched, about how this all started as a transaction and became everything. Not one, I tell him honestly. You? Only that I didn't tell you I loved you sooner, he admits. That I wasted time trying to do the right thing for everyone else when the only right thing was choosing you. He kisses me softly. Thank you for saying yes, for taking a chance on me, for staying. Thank you for asking me to stay, I whisper back. James makes a small sound, and we both look down at our son, this perfect little human we created together. The future spreads out before us, full of possibility. Callahan will continue working to legitimize his empire, to build something clean and good. I'll start my foundation, finally pursuing the dream of helping people that I never thought I'd achieve. Together, we'll raise James with love and security and the knowledge that his parents chose each other despite impossible odds. This isn't the life I planned. It's so much better. Later, after Callahan has left for meetings and James is sleeping peacefully in his crib, I stand at the window looking out at the city that almost destroyed me and instead gave me everything. My phone buzzes, a text from my mother in Ohio. She's doing better now. Her medical bills paid off, able to afford the treatment she needs. She's flying out next week to meet her grandson for the first time. The thought makes me smile. My mother, who worked 3 jobs to raise me, who taught me strength and resilience, gets to see me happy, gets to hold her grandchild. The cycle of struggle ends with us. James will never know poverty, never know what it's like to count pennies or skip meals or lose hope. He'll have every opportunity, every advantage, and he'll have love, so much love. I touch the ring on my finger, the physical symbol of promises kept and futures built. Then I go to my son, lifting him from his crib, holding him close. You're so loved, I whisper to James, by your father, by me, by everyone whose lives you'll touch. He opens his eyes, those dark thorn eyes, and looks at me with perfect trust. We're going to be okay, I tell him. All of us. We're going to be more than okay. We're going to be extraordinary. And I believe it. Against all odds, I believe it. The end. Moral message. True love transcends contracts, class, and circumstance. Sometimes the most desperate moments lead to the most beautiful beginnings. Kindness, courage, and choosing the people you love over the expectations of the world. These are the things that matter. Isla risked everything, and in doing so found everything she'd been missing. Callahan learned that power means nothing without someone to share it with. Together, they built something real from what started as a transaction. Love doesn't care about your bank account or your past or the mistakes you've made. Love only cares that you show up, that you choose each other, that you fight for the life you want to build together. And sometimes the person offering you $10 million isn't trying to buy you. They're trying to save themselves, and you end up saving each other. The end.